Mind control has always fascinated humans. Fueled by a desire to conquer the human body's cognition center and wield the same power, scientists have exhausted all kinds of resources to do the impossible. While these efforts are admirable, there exists a disturbingly dark side to this issue that needs to be addressed. Today we will learn about the grim story of Project MKUltra and the disturbing side of mind control. Shockingly, the biggest stakeholder in learning about mind control has been the CIA. The intelligence agency's obsession with controlling the human mind reached a peak in the 1950s. With stories of GIs returning home brainwashed from Korea, China, and the Soviet Union, the threat of brain warfare became all too real for the American people. It's worth noting that efforts to subdue the human mind have been underway for a long time now. For example, back in the 70s, a neuropsychologist named Robert Heath at Tulane University used electrodes in the brain to try to change a man's sexual orientation. He believed he could cure homosexuality using this method. In Spain, a neuroscientist named José Delgado went even further. He used brain stimulation not only on animals like monkeys and charging bulls, but also on people. José's goal was to create a device with electrodes in the brain that could control a person's actions, like a radio controller. His vision? Ridding society of deviant behavior to establish a psycho-civilized society. However, it was the CIA that really showed everyone just how determined people are to control the human mind. During the late 40s and early 50s, CIA agents lay awake at night, paralyzed by one fear: the fear of the communists inventing a mind control technique or drug. And so, what did Allen Dulles, the first civilian director of the intelligence agency, do? He approved the establishment of the MKUltra program in 1953. Leading the program was Sidney Gottlieb, CIA's chief chemist, who specialized in creating poisons and administering them. For 10 years, scientists working for the program dedicated themselves to discovering innovative ways of controlling the human mind. Their ambitions knew no bounds. They wanted drugs that could erase the memories of people who were questioned, as well as chemicals that would make agents forget who ordered them to carry out hits, and truth serums that would save them the trouble of carrying out lengthy, often morally questionable investigations. This marked a dark chapter in the relentless pursuit of mind control methods, and it's this search for achieving the impossible that led them to lysergic acid diethylamide, also known as LSD, a potent psychedelic drug. The drug was created by Dr. Albert Hofmann at the Sandoz Laboratories in Basel in 1943. Strangely enough, the CIA was single-handedly responsible for introducing LSD to the American people. In fact, in the 1950s, Sidney went as far as convincing the American government to pay $240,000 for the world's entire supply of LSD. The CIA then distributed the drug to various organizations tasked with research into the drug, how it affected the brain, and whether it could be used for controlling people's minds. While the organizations leading these efforts mostly carried out their experiments on volunteers, people who consented to become guinea pigs, not everyone was given a choice. Scientists working at the CIA were more ruthless with their methods. With prisoners of war locked up in CIA jail cells, these scientists found a fresh crop of human subjects. Over the years, many of these prisoners have come forward to speak about their experiences, including Whitey Bulger. Bulger suffered the unfortunate fate of being locked up for hijacking a truck at the Atlanta penitentiary. Although he may have consented to participate in the study, Bulger was not told the truth about the experiment. He signed up because he believed to be one of the many who were helping the government to find a cure for schizophrenia. However, what he did not know was that he was part of the CIA's grand plan, one of the government's many lab rats, to figure out mind control. Every day, for an excruciatingly long year, Bulger was loaded with LSD. The scientists behind this unsettling experiment harbored a certain curiosity. Could a person lose their sanity after taking LSD every day for a year? Why is that? You see, there are two parts to controlling someone's mind: erasing their thoughts and then inserting a new mind. What Bulger was going through very much fell under the first part, and much to the horror of Bulger and everyone who learned his story, he was losing his mind. While writing about his experiences, Whitey wrote, "Total loss of appetite, hallucinating. The room would change shape, hours of paranoia and feeling violent." Bulger detailed how the prisoners experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls. In his words, guys turned to skeletons in front of him. He described another instance where he saw a camera change into the head of a dog. If Whitey could use one word to describe the experience, it would be horrific. To add to the brutality of the situation, the CIA enlisted the services of high-class torturers, including Nazi doctors and one chief prisoner from Japan during World War II. In fact, according to reports, the CIA's work was essentially a continuation of what had been going on in Nazi and Japanese concentration camps. And so the CIA enlisted the help of torturers who worked at these camps to best understand what experiments they performed and what they learned. One topic of interest for the CIA was mescaline, a psychedelic drug that the Nazis heavily experimented with at the Dachau concentration camp. Nazi doctors were called over to provide information about the lethal nerve gas sarin as well. Interestingly, Sidney Gottlieb, the man leading the charge, was Jewish himself. How was Sidney able to get away with this? Was there no law that prevented him from inviting over the Nazis? Well, it's all because the United States never signed on to the Nuremberg Code, which made it necessary for informed consent to be taken before any human experiments. Keeping that in mind, MKUltra was a direct violation of the Nuremberg Code, but since the US had never signed the code, it was exempt from the consequences. According to journalist Stephen Kinzer, what Gottlieb did under MKUltra was exactly what the German doctors did. And these German doctors were sentenced to death after the Second World War. That said, the CIA's experiments were not limited to prisoners. They involved unsuspecting members of the general public as well. Back in 1955, the CIA poured its resources into decorating a room on 225 Chestnut Street in San Francisco. The agency's purpose? To lure in men with the help of hired prostitutes, dose them with LSD while George White sat behind a two-way mirror to watch the action. Initially, White served as an agent in the Federal Bureau of Narcotics before the CIA recruited him during their early involvement in the realm of drugs. The purpose of these experiments was once again to see how LSD affected the human mind and what role it could play in the CIA for extracting information. These experiments eventually came to be known as the CIA Carnal Operations. Experiments like these continued for a decade before coming to an end in 1963, all because John Vance, a member of the CIA Inspector General's staff, learned of the secret projects. Despite the CIA's best efforts to convince the audit board otherwise, the project was shut down. The agency was entering a new era, one where it adhered to research ethics and guidelines. And that's how one of the most brutal series of human experiments came to an end. Unfortunately, the men behind these experiments were never punished for their crimes, though there was a series of congressional hearings overseen by Senator Edward Kennedy in 1977. These hearings culminated in a series of dead ends. Interrogations of ex-employees about how many people were involved, how the prisoners were picked, and the details of the experiments turned up empty. Surprisingly, for some reason, these employees could not remember any details about MKUltra, the program that had taken the lives of many and devastated even more.
And I always thought, is this how it feels to die? And I never knew if I'd ever come out of it.
Unfortunately, authorities couldn't turn to records since in 1973, the director of the program had the bright idea of destroying said files for privacy reasons. And that's how the paper trail documenting one of the most harrowing experiments conducted by the American government vanished into thin air. The culprits were able to evade accountability, with the victims left to bear the lasting horrors of their ordeal. Needless to say, humanity's quest to unravel the secrets of mind control has a history marked by some deeply disturbing chapters. Simply put, mind control is more than the fictional portrayals made out to be in pop culture. Introduced in the real world, the concept presents serious ethical issues and unintended consequences. Any pursuit of taming the human body's most dominant organ requires an approach with caution and care,